What's up everybody, OG here. Welcome to the channel, and I have a special video for you because we are going to go through an actual coaching session for eFootball in this case, but it is no different for any of the football games. And this will be very helpful for all of you because for one, you can see just how much getting a coach can help you improve, but for two, even the players who aren't looking to get a coach or they don't think it's worth the money, whatever the case is, they can learn ways to improve by watching back their own gameplay. Now, it won't be as good because watching from that different lens is the key, but there are still benefits that make it worthwhile to watch back your games. So this will show you exactly how I break down the footage and how you can take that footage, learn from your mistakes, and improve at the game. So this particular session is for OGFC member Phil Mo. Shout out to him for letting me use this as an example. Usually we would be on a Discord call together, watching the footage live together, but he allowed me to do this session as a video so I could show it to all of you. So shout out again to Phil, and let's get into this game between him and Cozy, which was part of the OGFC No Account Cup, our second ever eFootball Cup, in which there was excellent football throughout. So enjoy the game and enjoy this training session breakdown. So as you were watching the game, you were simply keeping your eye on your entire team. You're keeping your eye on any movement, any mistakes, any good plays, and this is something that you will get better at as you do it more. And one of the first things I noticed, which is why I slowed this down to 50%, because I want Phil to see the reactive nature of how he's playing. And this is both offense and defense. On defense, he's always chasing his opponent down. Instead of being 1 to 2 plays ahead, instead of moving his defense and anticipating where the ball is going so he's ready, he's actually chasing wherever the opponent goes. So they are in control. Offensively, whenever he gets the ball, you see him a lot of times cut left and right, sometimes turn around and then make the pass. And that's because he doesn't know who he's going to pass to before he receives the ball. And what this will lead to is many more goals scored against you, because if your opponent's ahead of you, it's only a matter of time before, even with the overpowered defense, you can't catch up to him. And when you're constantly reactive on the offensive side, you don't know the pass you're going to make, you are going to lose the ball a lot. So to work on this, you need to better understand your tactics, better understand how your players are set up, their play styles, understand their movement. And if you study that, you start to realize where they're going to be in different instances. On the defensive side, you have to understand how to position yourself to intercept passes or to make the tackle if a player dribbles, as opposed to always chasing an opponent down to make the tackle because you're reactive. You see the smarts that Phil has. I mean, this was a brilliant ball, and this is him reacting. Just think if he was 1, 2, 3 plays ahead. If he can make this type of ball under pressure, if he's even more prepared with understanding where his players are going to be instead of having to scope the field as he's playing, think of how much more dangerous if he has an opponent actually on the ropes reacting to him instead of the other way around. That will lead him to winning the ball that much more defensively and connecting a lot more passes, which will lead to a lot more chances created and a lot more goals. So you can see something else tied to this is when Phil isn't dribbling around a bit to find a pass when he feels rushed and he's making a pass and it essentially goes to no man's land, right? And you're wondering, well, how does that happen? It's because he's not a couple plays ahead. When he gets the ball and he doesn't have that time, or he doesn't feel like he has that time to kind of dribble a bit and scan the field, he then just makes a pass in a general direction, almost like a Hail Mary pass. And obviously, in those cases, more often than not, the ball is going to be intercepted. If instead he was aware of the positioning of his players in different parts of the field, he would know exactly who to pass to in different scenarios and where they were going to be. It becomes muscle memory. Now, those of us that want a skill gap, that want skilled defense, for instance, the defensive system in the game right now is nonsense. Too heavily AI assisted, both the pressure button and the R1, the AI assisted pressure button. But for now, this is what we have, and you have to utilize it correctly. So what Phil is doing many times is utilizing X when he truly should be switching away to another defender to block a passing lane, to get ready to block a dangerous area where players can get through or potentially get through, and let his AI potentially make the tackle or at least pressure his opponent. when he is controlling the player doing the pressuring, he is taking away from the opportunity to have a second defender in an even better position if he is controlling that player. But in order to master this, you have to work on it. And one of the biggest things is setting yourself up, moving a defender into place to then switch away and have that defender be taken over by the AI. That is something that needs to be worked on heavily in Phil's game defensively, because he's missing out on a whole extra defender to help come win the ball. Now, this next defensive pointer is interesting because as the game's progressed, Phil has gone from being very reactive and trying to chase down the opponent to keep him from getting scoring chances, which, as much as you don't want to do that, he has kept the opponent off the scoreboard. With that being said, you've seen him transition into more of a patient defense, keeping his numbers behind the ball, which is exactly what long ball counter typically calls for. So he is playing the play style to a T defensively. You see players in shape. You see he's constantly switching and just watching the passing lanes, but not overcommitting, not diving into tackles. And this is a common theme. Many times players are smart enough to know what they need to do, but they get sucked in. It's a tournament game, right? He wants to win badly, and so he starts going off all emotion. A lot of the technique or technical ability goes out the window, and then as the game calms down, he gets back into more of a game plan. So we know Phil is capable and has the knowledge and ability to play proper defense, not being reactive, not chasing all the time, and it's just about implementing it from the starting whistle, and it will help him improve vastly, because think of how many chances and, more importantly, goals that Phil has and would continue to give up based on not playing proper defense, based on chasing instead of keeping players in position in between the ball and the goal. So that is something that we have to be conscious of, and I would say at the beginning, always remind yourself of pointers like this. Going into each game, as the game's loading up, talk to yourself about playing proper defense from the start. Talk to yourself about X, Y, and Z, and just put it in your head, refresh it in your memory each and every game until, like I said earlier, it becomes muscle memory. Now, I want to take a good look at these stats because you can learn a lot from these stats about how the game's going, about where you're doing well, where you can improve. And then I want to rewind and show you something from the first half that Phil can absolutely build on and do more of and will absolutely lead to success. So, what story do these stats tell? And to answer this, you have to look at the game in 3 different sections. The defensive section, where you try to keep the ball out of your net. The build-up section, where you try to get the ball into the attacking section. And then the attacking section, where you try to score goals. So, in the build-up section is where Phil is getting outplayed. You can tell that by passes and successful passes. And on the defensive section, I would say Phil is actually getting the upper hand on Cozy because as the game progresses, we talked about, he started defending properly and Phil wasn't able to get really into any dangerous chances. There's a few close calls at the beginning, and if the game continued to go where he was being reactive, he may have given up more chances and potentially some goals, but that didn't happen. Now, on the attacking end, the stats say just about even or maybe Phil doing a bit better. However, when you look at the actual chances created in the attacking section of the game for Phil, you see that he was actually much better. He had much more dangerous chances. In particular, these 2 chances we are looking at now where Phil plays some good passes and is able to get in on goal, but unfortunately the keeper makes the save. And then this one, where he does well, puts good pressure to win the ball, and watch this ball movement. Beautiful give and go at the end, and unfortunately, he puts it at the keeper and doesn't score. But the most important part is that he created the chances against a very good opponent. Cozy is a top player in eFootball, and to be able to get these type of chances to beat Cozy's defense like this shows that he has the attacking ability to beat a top player's defense and create chances. So for future games, those could easily be goals. But now, it's important to break down how we got those chances and how we can get more, and if the misses were bad shooting or he just was unlucky. Well, the build-up part, he simply needs to figure out how to get more of the ball, because in the attacking section, his passing was clinical and will no doubt lead to more chances in the future. So last but not least is shooting, and if he chose the right angle as well as the right shot selection, which, as we saw, both of those were good and seemed like if you pause it right before he shot, you would think those balls went in. So that just leaves the placement of the shots, which in talking to Phil, I know that the first shot you can charge to the fact that eFootball just doesn't have a skilled shooting system, such as FC, which has precision and green time shooting, where you can get particular on what you need to do differently to make sure the ball ends up in the back of the net. However, on the second shot, I know that Phil took it with quickness and didn't place it properly. So that second one, we just need to work on when you're in that moment, making sure you put the ball where the goalie is not. It's as simple as that. Most of the time that will be in the corner and you just have to choose left or right, near or far post. So in summary, you just don't want to overcomplicate it and you don't want to get into panic mode and waste a good opportunity like Phil did there by not properly placing the ball, which he knows and he will work on in the future. Now the second half says a lot, and in a 0-0 game, it will tell you where the players stand as far as their confidence level. As they've settled down, do those beginning of the game mistakes continue to occur, or have they been corrected? And in Phil's case, defensively, it's good to see that he's continuing with that more patient defensive approach, not diving in, keeping his defensive shape in his players between the ball and the goal. And then in the attack, as you're going to see here, it's good to see that when he gets the ball and the opportunity, he makes those clinical passes to then get in dangerous areas. Right here, you see a counterattack that leads to a penalty kick. Now, it was a soft penalty kick, no doubt, but that is why it's important to get the ball in those dangerous areas, because this is what happens. If you don't score, you create chances to score. And while the penalty ends up being missed, we can be confident that when Phil gets the ball in that build-up section, he can confidently and accurately transition into the attacking section where he is creating chances. And with many players, that isn't the case. So Phil has a brilliant foundation to build on. That is the biggest thing that I want Phil to recognize, that he has the vision and the skill to get the ball into those dangerous areas to create and score goals. So that means we just need to figure out how to get him more of the ball in the build-up section of the field, between the defensive section where, as the game progressed, he did well, and assuming that he can continue with that more patient, keeping players in shape, not diving in, not reacting, not chasing. If he can keep that going, he's fine on the defensive side. And of course, in the attacking side where he's getting the chances, we just need them to get in the back of the net. So again, the main focus is the build-up area and getting him more of the ball. Now, before moving forward, I want to reiterate or rephrase what I mean by fine on the defensive and the attacking end, because that doesn't mean we aren't going to work on improving in those areas. It simply means that he has good knowledge and good skill in both the defensive and attacking section, so we can be comfortable with focusing first on improving in the build-up section of the field and then moving to the defensive and attacking sections to tighten up some things and improve there. So then, moving into the build-up section, we already talked about one major area that needs improvement, which is knowing where he is going to pass before he receives the ball, not being reactive. We've seen him improve on it on the defensive side, which was good. As the game progressed, he settled down. But as far as the pass selections, we continue to see many times where Phil will receive a pass and not have an idea of where his players are, or have an idea where he wants to pass the ball next, which many times results in aimless dribbling, cutting left and right while you look for a next pass, and a lot of times there you will lose the ball. So to fix this, we need to look at exactly what options Phil is looking at when he receives the ball. And if there are wide open options, then we know he just has a bad habit of not being able to scan the field as the game is going, right? He's only looking where the ball is and nothing else, and then passing, then looking to the next place, and passing, and then looking to the next place. Similar in real life football, when you have players that dribble with their head down and they're never able to see the field around them, to see where the opponent is, to see where the open pass is, which leads to many times losing the ball. It's that same concept, but in video game football form. So it's either that, or it could potentially be the formation. When he receives the ball, are there just not the best passing options where, the opponent can't potentially steal the ball right away? And I can immediately safely say that this is not due to a bad formation. Not only did Phil do a good job selecting this formation and setup to suit how he plays, but there are also many open passes when he receives the ball. which means he is just going to have to focus on looking outside of just where the ball is. Just like in real football, dribbling with your head down, it takes time and effort to get out of that uncomfortable feeling when you dribble with your head down. You need to work on it, and that's what Phil needs to do. And eventually, he will be 1 to 2 passes ahead, quickly scanning his passing options as he is making a pass. So when he receives the ball, his next pass will already be ready. It just takes time, but he no doubt, as you can see in other areas, has the ability and has the skill to improve and start connecting his passes based on knowing where he wants to pass the ball next before his player even receives the ball. That will lead to keeping the ball a lot more. And then there is only one area that is more tied to play style, which maybe in that case needs to be changed. In this game, Phil is playing long ball counter. And with his style, similar to mine, he needs to use super cancel to bring his players to so they can receive the ball to their feet. A lot of times when Phil is rushing these passes, it looks even worse because the players aren't where they were when he passed the ball. They're continuing their runs forward. Now, he either can keep practicing what we talked about earlier, which is scanning the field ahead of time, along with using super cancel as soon as he passes the ball, which would make this a two-step process. Scan the field, pass, super cancel, players come to, receive to their feet, right? Because once you press super cancel, you manually have to pull the player to. So it just adds more mechanics to being successful in each area of the field, and in this case we're talking about the build-up area, when using long ball counter play style. The other option would be changing the play style. In this case I would say possession, because players will naturally come to. Their runs will go from long runs to when you receive the ball, your players come towards you. And when you're watching these passes that end up getting intercepted, you notice that many of them are, like I said earlier, because the players aren't where they were when Phil passed the ball. In possession, the players won't only be where they were, they will be even closer, which will lead to more successful passes. However, defensively, this totally changes your game plan and the mechanics you have to use, because instead of a deep line where you can naturally have many players behind the ball and be patient, which we saw as the game went on, that's what Phil preferred and that's where he did well. All the way until the mistake that led to this, the game-winning goal where he dove at the attacker out wide, which allowed for the eventual shot and goal. But nobody is perfect, and this isn't a reason to change up because of the defensive side of the long ball counter play style. Phil actually did a great job defensively for most of the game and just gave up that one chance to a very high level player. So let's get back to the long ball counter attacking style, where is the main decider on if he should keep going with it or move to possession. Because if he does make that change, while those passing options in the build-up section will be easier to connect, he will have to use a high line and more of a pressure style defense. A total 180 to the deep line, patient style of defense that he uses in the long ball counter play style and does well with. So, unless Phil totally is against possession, which I happen to know that he is open to working on everything, right, which is what a good player does, we will go with practicing with the possession style and reviewing games to see how he does. That will be our next step for our next session. Switching up to the possession play style, using it over the next couple of weeks, getting comfortable, because of course there will be growing pains as you make that big change, because the play styles do totally play different on both defense and offense. And then as he progresses over the next couple of weeks, we will review how he's done and go over some game footage to see where he's doing well and where he needs to improve within possession, and decide, is this a suitable play style for him? And based on how that goes, we have several options. One is finding a manager where you can use both possession and long ball counter and working between the two depending on the opponent he is facing. Or we could continue to experiment and possibly find other good play styles that Phil does well with, which even if he does well with long ball counter and possession, it is still important to play all of the play styles, because you never know which ones you might excel in. And you can see exactly how these play styles play out, so you know when your opponents use them what to look for. And last but not least, we could just focus on one play style, because sometimes players are determined that that one play style is superior to the rest, and no matter what level they're at, they want to improve, even if it means totally changing how they play. So in this part, it is totally up to Phil. I can give my suggestions, but we will go with where Phil wants to go because he is the player. He is the one, after all, that we are trying to get to his full potential. And in this case, whatever he wants to go with, we can absolutely work on. So in summary, this is a game versus a top player, and Phil is someone that is fresh into this game. He doesn't have a ton of experience, and he's shown that he learns fast and he has the skill and the mindset to succeed. Only making one mistake that led to a goal in a game where he absolutely had chances, where in another circumstance he wins this game 2-1, ties 1-1, maybe even wins 3-1 with the 2 chances at the end of the first half and the PK right there. That's 3 goals. And that's not to say that Cozy didn't have his own chances or his own close calls, but it is extremely exciting for Phil because we know as he works on these things, he will continue to improve and his potential is through the roof. So I can't wait to see where this goes. I know that he will climb as high as he wants to go and start winning these games versus these top players, playing football the way it should be played, which is exactly how he plays now. It's always a pleasure as it stands to watch Phil. So I can only imagine as we keep working on things where he will end up and how much fun it will be to watch him. So with that being said, that concludes this coaching session. I hope you took something from this, whether you decide to get a coach because you can see how much it can help you, or this inspires you to start at least breaking down your own footage. Either way, as always, keep grinding, keep having fun. I appreciate all your support, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.